Here you have a country of 60 million people, 60 million people, living in the closing decades of the 20th century. And yet, these 60 million people have to be supported by an economy that properly belongs to the 17th century. I say 17th century because the Philippine economy is essentially a pre-industrial economy. This is an economy which the United States had before it acquired its independence in 1776, which England had before England was launched on its industrial revolution in the middle of the 17th century. Well, but in the United States, when the United States began its industrial revolution at the turn of the 18th century, the United States had only 3 to 4 million people. We have in this country 60 million people, which has to be supported by an economy that belongs to the pre-industrial period of history. Now, in the Philippines, just to give you a concrete example of what I'm trying to say, we cannot even produce, manufacture our own hand tools. We have to import our screwdrivers, our machine tools, and basically every tool of production, because we do not have the capability to produce this on our own. You see a lot of cars moving in the city, but these cars are nothing more than cars assembled out of imported manufactured components. We have no engine industry, we have no motor industry, we have no machine industry, we have no engineering industry, we don't even have a basic metal industry. And yet, we have to support 60 million people. So this is the root of our malaise. A situation like this simply leads to nothing else but starvation and poverty. If we were, for example, cut off either by war or by an international financial debacle, if we were cut off from sources of loans at this moment, we will not even know how to produce our traffic lights, because we are importing even traffic lights. We have not developed any organized body of applied scientific knowledge. Even the production of shoes is dependent on the molds that have to be imported from abroad. Flashlights. We continue to import flashlights. So if the world were confronted, were faced or engulfed by an emergency or by a catastrophe, this country wouldn't know how to survive. We will not be able to set up the smallest factory without having to import the components that go into the making of that factory. We will not even be able to make our own bicycles, because the manufacture of bicycles still require the use of certain metals, of certain contraptions, of certain devices, which we don't produce, but which we have to import. We cannot even produce rice today because the growing of rice has become completely dependent on fertilizer. And we don't produce our fertilizers, at least not in the amounts that are needed. We don't have the basic chemicals that go into the production of fertilizers. These chemicals have to be imported. The solution here is for us to be able to resume what we did during the decade of the 1950s. The solution here is for us to be permitted to engineer our own industrial revolution, the way South Korea was permitted, the way Taiwan was permitted, the way Brazil and Mexico and India, and the way all countries in Asia are engineering their own industrial revolution. Because unless we are able to collect ourselves and proceed with our own industrial revolution, we will continue to be a nation dependent solely on the land for our source of livelihood.